Hello everyone, very good evening to all of you. Welcome to the platform of GS Core. Today we are going to discuss an important aspect of world history and French Revolution. My name is Harshvardhan Singh and we are going to discuss about the important topic in the world history and which changes the course of history all over the world. Okay, so first thing, these are the questions, sample question which asked in the examination, previous year examination. For example, critically examine the statement that the French Revolution was not caused by French philosopher but by the condition of national life and by the mistakes of the government. This question was asked in 2016 for 20 marks. Along with that, this question was asked in 2020, last year only, and this question is related to the causes of the French Revolution of 1789 included both long-term and structural factors as well as more immediate events. These two are critically analyzed questions. Critically analyzed questions. So before that, first we are going to understand what exactly the syllabus is. So this is the syllabus given in our notification. Syllabus is French Revolution and Aftermath 1789 to 1815. So simple. Yes everyone, so simple. French Revolution and Aftermath 1789 to 1815. Do you really think so it is very simple or just one line mention everything? There are so many events are included in it. And first we are going to find out what exactly the syllabus is, the depth of syllabus we are going to find out, and after that we are going to discuss about the factors and how they are led to the French Revolution. We are going to discuss in this session. Yes everyone. So all of you know about the French Revolution. Yes everyone. French Revolution 1789. So, do you really think so that French Revolution is an isolated event? Isolated means no background was there, nothing. One fine morning, Frenchmen decided, okay, they want to change the system and they change it. Is that the case? Of course not. Then what exactly this case is? So, when we talk about the French Revolution, first we have to find out, we have to understand what exactly the background. So when the word is, as the syllabus mentioned, French Revolution and Aftermath 1789 to 1815, but to understand the French Revolution of 1789, we have to understand the background. What was the situation prevailed pre-1789 and that leads to the French Revolution. So what exactly the syllabus? I am going to define the syllabus right now. So our syllabus of French Revolution, it comprises of 1789, of course, here the French Revolution is there. So, pre-1789, the situation in the France pre-1789, basically the background we have to understand. But what syllabus said? Syllabus is saying that 1789 onwards. Clear? So, before starting this revolution, first we have to understand this concept. So, pre-1789. Then what happened during the 1789 we have to discuss. Next, in this case, the phases of French Revolution is there. French Revolution is in the phases. Clear? It is not that 1789 revolution happened and everything is fine, everything is normal. It was not the case. Phases. For example, the first phase of French Revolution is from 1789 to 1791. This phase is known as National Assembly or this phase is also known as Constituent Assembly. Don't worry, we are going to discuss these things in detail in coming lecture. I just want to elaborate the syllabus. Okay. So this is the first phase. So many changes happened in the France, the old France destroyed and became a new France. What was the old France and all that we are going to discuss here. Okay, this is the first phase. Now the phase second. The phase second is basically known as legislative assembly. This legislative assembly, the period, the time duration is 1791 to 1792, just for 1 year. Just for 1 year. First elected body. But what happened? Why exactly this time period is too short? 1 year. After 1 year, because the deadlock was there, and you know, in democracy always the will of the people, majority is required. In parliament, suppose in our country as well, nobody is having majority. Do you really think so that work is going on? So at least some consensus should be there, but here it was not the case. Deadlock was there, and finally that leads to dissolution, again the formation of new body, and the revolution is continued. Revolution doesn't mean just a change of the monarchy. Revolution is a continuous process. It introduces so many changes, and all changes are of progressive nature. Clear? So next phase, that is the phase 3, we have to understand here in this case, and that phase is known as National Convention. That phase is known as National Convention. The time duration is 1792 to 1795. So many changes happened during this phase. This phase is dominated by the Republicans, and in that Republican, Jacobean. Robespierre is very famous personality in this period. So they introduced so many changes, the end of monarchy, establishment of republic, and this phase is very much important in history for one what we can say the horrifying period, and that is known as Reign of Terror. This Reign of Terror belongs to this period. This period is also known as excesses of revolution. Revolution, everybody like the changes, but these changes are having the negative side as well, and the Reign of Terror is one of the important example of it. Clear? So this phase is phase 3rd. Now this is just like everywhere. The beginning point is there, then gradually upward, reach to the peak or zenith, then the process of decline begins. This is the life, this is everywhere. It is the same thing with the French Revolution. French Revolution 1789, the beginning phase, legislative assembly, the progressiveness, and this concept, that is National Convention, it's the zenith or peak of that. Now the revolution gradually started declining, and the next phase, the phase number 4, the phase 4 is basically known as directory system. As all of these phases were having the representative, election was there. This directory system, 5 directors were there. Instead of so many people, just responsibility given to the 5 people, and this directory system didn't perform very well, and that's why this phase was there from 1795 to 1799. Just for 4 years this phase was continued. People frustrated with the revolutionary ideas, as you know that it started in 1789, now in 1799, but still there is no concrete changes. Clear? And that's why people were finding something new. They want a peace, they want security, and they fed up with these ideas. And at that time, one person emerged as a promising figure. We called it as a Messiah, and Frenchmen considered the Messiah, and that leads to phase 5 of the French Revolution, which began in 1789. And that 5th phase, as I have limited space, I am going to write here the phase 5, and that phase 5 is known as the consulate system. And this phase was there from 1799 to 1803. Napoleon was a smart person. He don't want to provoke the masses by declaring himself as a king. He took the advantage. He became the popular consulate system. It was not an elected system. He came, he abolished the directive system, established the consulate system, and in that he became the first consulate. He was so popular and he took the advantage and introduced so many changes in the consulate system as well. He became the consulate for life. That means he became the dictator first, and once he took the referendum and people were happy with the Napoleon declared himself king, and that is the end of first phase of revolution, real sense. But as the syllabus is given, the syllabus what said? Syllabus is saying that French Revolution and aftermath of French Revolution from 1789 to 1815. So we have to see the other aspect after 1803, what happened. So this is the part of our syllabus. Till this point, syllabus is clear? Good. Now what happened? Napoleon, he always declared himself as a son of revolution. He said that I am the revolution. Why he said so? Because it is very simple. You know that in medieval society, everywhere in the world, society was divided into too many classes, and the class rigidity was there. If you are from a normal background or a lower class, you cannot become a noble. It was a situation at that time, but French Revolution gave the modern ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity, and these modern ideas helped Napoleon or the people like Napoleon to raise themselves, and that's why he always said that he is a child of revolution. Clear? So what exactly he did? He knew that Frenchman loves the changes, but he was very clear that he wants to become emperor. So gradually he took a step in such a manner that he became emperor, but still Frenchmen were happy. Tell me one thing, in 1789 when revolution was happened, when French Revolution was happened, it was against so many factors, and one factor was monarchy. So many factors, but one factor is monarchy. 1791 when they established the legislative assembly, they curtailed the power of king. King became a constitutional monarch, and when national convention was there, during that time they ended the monarchy. So basically this French Revolution ended the monarchy in subsequent time, or we can say in near future. He declared himself as an emperor. Who? Napoleon. So the revolution started from ending the monarchy, and after the end of revolution, establishment of the monarchy itself. How it is possible? Don't you think so that he fooled the Frenchmen? And don't you think so that Frenchmen also accepted? Is it so easy to fool whole country at the same time? Of course not. So he adopted some strategies, and those strategies were basically what we can say so effective that he became the emperor. Still people didn't feel any problem with that, because they considered earlier system was the worst, now this system is the best, and this is the case. Clear? Now what happened? The next part of syllabus we are going to discuss, that once he became the monarch, that is Napoleon became emperor. Once he became emperor, what he did, he introduced the changes, and these are the most important part of our study. He introduced the changes, and these two changes are, one is an internal change and another is an external change. Internal change means those changes he introduced within the France, and external changes are those who he introduced outside the France, as he was an emperor, and you know what is the quality of emperor, what is the duty of emperor, to expand the empire. And when he expanded the empire, he introduced these new ideas in those areas. So in history it is said that Napoleon laid the foundation stone of unification of Germany and unification of Italy. How it is so, we are going to discuss in in syllabus and all. So basically, what type of changes he introduced? He introduced the changes of all type, all. Maybe the financial changes he introduced, his social changes he introduced, yes, along with the changes in the law. The codification of law is the best example, that is Napoleonic Code, we used to call it as. Along with that, one more important thing, he promoted equality. He promoted equality, but at the same time he rejected the concept of liberty. And right now, as we know that in our constitution as well, it is written liberty and equality. Everywhere, whenever the word we use, liberty, equality and fraternity, trinity we use. Have you ever seen that we use the word, no, we don't want liberty, equality is enough, sufficient for us? Because we know what exactly the meaning of liberty and how liberty is a meaningless if you don't have a equality, or how equality is meaningless if you are having liberty. Clear? So these type of changes he introduced, some are having positive in nature, because the one best example internal change I just want to mention, that is the financial inclusion he started, financial reconstruction. Bank of France was established, and this Bank of France gave boost to the industrialization process in France. So there are some positive internal changes as well as some negative internal changes introduced. The same way with the external changes. Now everything was fine. Napoleon was very popular right now, popular in France, as well as he is considered as a liberator. Yes everyone, he is considered of liberator of Europe at that time. Messiah, once he became Messiah of France, other also considered him as a Messiah, and that's why his ambitions were basically go day by day. And now once he establishes direct or indirect influence all over the European continent except Britain, because you know the Britain, mistress of sea at that time, most powerful nation, most powerful navy. So now expansion in Europe is over. That time it was a process of colonization, imperialism was there, and now the rivalry between France and Britain is going to restart. It was already there. Now it is going to restart under the leadership of Napoleon, and that rivalry started with one thing, and that is known as continental system. We have to understand what exactly, because this is an indirect tool of warfare. Warfare have many tools. Directly attacking, this is the direct tool. Indirect, any kind of biological attack is there, any kind of financial restrictions are there, they are the indirect tool. So this continental system was an indirect tool, and how it affects the economy of Britain, as well as how this continental system became the double-edged sword and it hurted the French financial interest as well. We are going to discuss. This is the part of syllabus. The next thing we are going to discuss about, and which is very famous, that is Spanish ulcer. What exactly the Spanish ulcer and all, I am not going to discuss here because it is a topic in detail. But in one word, I just want to tell you, when Napoleon expanded his territory, he has ambitions to defeat Portugal. At that time, he entered into Spain and he betrayed the Spanish monarch, and that's why French national opposes the Napoleon and Napoleonic army. It was a kind of guerrilla warfare was going on in this case, and that is known as Spanish ulcer. Along with that, the next important thing is Peninsular War. Peninsular War, 1808 to 1813. This Peninsular War was going on between Britain and France. Clear? Along with that, next important thing we have to discuss, that is Russian invasion. Russian invasion. And this Russian invasion, I just want to tell you one important fact, that is Russian invasion broke the myth of Grand Army of Napoleon, undefeated army of Napoleon. And finally, the two battles were there, 1813, the Battle of Leipzig, and last and desperate effort that is known as Battle of Waterloo. End of Napoleon. This is our syllabus. Clear? When we started, what exactly it was? One line. French Revolution and aftermath, 1789 to 1815. So these are the subtopics in that, and they are all interlinked with each other. Remember one thing, French Revolution is a very important event in the world history. It is what we consider, it is the first reaction in the chain, and this chain is completed with the Second World War. First event is the French Revolution, all the subsequent event that leads to Second World War. In one go, it is the case. So if you fail to understand the French Revolution, then it is very difficult for us to understand the subsequent event. Link is there. Clear? So now I decipher the syllabus, decode the whatever the syllabus is given in the one line. Any question? Yes, everyone? Now, this is their end of Napoleon, Battle of Waterloo. Now, related to the question. What the question, I just want to show you once again. These two questions are of same nature. I just want to show you the importance of French Revolution from UPSC exam point of view. These two, the 2016 and 2020 questions are there. So we are going to discuss about this question because of 20 marks in nature, critically examined. Revolution was not caused by the French philosopher, but by the conditions of national life and by the mistake of the government. Critically examine the statement that the French Revolution was not caused by French philosopher, but by the condition of national life and by the mistake of government. Basically, this question belongs to which topic? Any guess? I discussed the French Revolution from 1789 to 1799, or we consider it as a 1803. Yes, everyone? I discussed the topic French Revolution 1789 to 1803. Here, end of French Revolution and Napoleon became the emperor. Do you really think so this question belongs to this particular area, or this question belongs to pre-1789? Now clear why I said that though syllabus mentioned 1789 onwards, but before understanding, without understanding the background that leads to revolution, it is very difficult for us to understand what happened later on, and the question are asking on this topic as well. Clear? So now First, we are going to discuss about the background. First, we are going to discuss about the background of pre-1789 France. Pre-1789 France. When we are going to discuss about the background, what do you think in the background? आसमान साफ था, बादल अच्छे थे, लोग खुशी में थे. Is that the background? Is that the case? राजा बहुत नेक था, दरिया दिल था. When we are talking about the background, what comes into your mind? Background means what? What exactly we are talking about? Whenever the word is there in civil services background or anything, remember in civil services examination, at least we should have a three concept in mind: socio-politico-economic. These are the three important words attached with us till the end of our life. These are the dimension. If you really want to understand any problem, any situation, then you have to at least I say, there are many other factors, but at least these three main factors, that is socio-politico-economic conditions, are very important to understand any event in the world and basically the revolution. रिवॉल्यूशन कभी भी सेंटिमेंटली काम नहीं होता कि एक दिन ऐसे गुस्सा हो गए लोग और रिवॉल्यूशन कर दिया. नो, देर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स लाइव्ड प्री मीन्स बिफोर हैपनिंग दैट particular event. It is not an event, it is a process, and that process gets culminated into that particular day. Just example, I just want to share one example. Everybody knew about this date? Yes? All of you, of course. यानी आप कैसे हो, क्या सर, क्या फालतू पूछते हो? Everybody knew about this. 15th August 1947. हाँ, recently some YouTube video and that said that lease and all. Trust on history books, not on WhatsApp. Okay. So everybody knew that 15th August 1947 India got independence. Clear? Do you really think so? That on that particular day, Indians decided, no, we do not want to be slave anymore. Now we want freedom. And all Indians gather and they said that, बस अब बहुत हो गया, 15 अगस्त को हमें छुट्टी दे दो अब चले जाओ. Is that the case? Of course not. In modern India, you can read, and you know this thing, you can read that just after establishment of British rule, so many revolts were there. So many revolts. Sannyasi revolt was there, yes. Kittur revolt was there, Vellore revolt was there, so many revolt was there. One important revolt, and that is in bigger scale, that is revolt of 1857, yes. So these revolts were there. Basically, it is a resistance to British rule. So many war, Anglo-Mysore war, Anglo-Maratha war, Anglo-Sikh war, this Anglo-Nepal war, so many war was going on at that time. These were the resistance to the British supremacy. Once they established the rule, then we resisted in a different manner. Our national movement started in 1885. This 1885 has many phases. One is a moderate phase, 1881 is a moderate phase, then extremist phase, then Gandhian phase, and then the phase of socialism, socialist, as we considered, the Nehru and Subhash and all. These all leads to the culmination of efforts of all these freedom fighters of Indian national movement, of socialist movement, of communist movement, as well as revolutionary movement. These all leads to this particular day. Clear? So it is not the event, it happened on particular day, background is there. It is the same way with the French Revolution, and now we are going to discuss that what was the situation before that. So three factors are important: socio-politico-economic factors. Clear? So as I mentioned, first we considered social factor. For considering the social problem, we have to understand the structure of society. What was the structure of society? As in medieval times, structure of society was quite similar everywhere. Land is the most important tool. Those who are having land, they were the powerful people, rich, aristocrat. Those who don't have land, they were poor. One more factor is there. The people belongs to religion everywhere in the world. This is a very common phenomenon. The religion played a dominant role in medieval times. So it is the same thing in the France. In the France, the society was like the same. It is known as estate. It is known as the estate. First estate, second estate, and third. And this division is based on birth, means first estate belongs to clergy, second estate belongs to nobility, and third estate belongs to the rest of the population. And in the rest, two important group, one is of peasant and another group was known as middle class. Clear? So this division and the society, the division of society is based on birth, means if you're born in third estate, you cannot be a member of nobility, you cannot be a member of religious group. Is it the case right now in anywhere in the world? In democratic country I am talking about. Is it the case in UPSC, as you are all are there? You are from all different background. Some of you are the son and daughter of farmers, some of you are from son and daughter of businessmen as well as bureaucrat. Everywhere from different. And all of you want to become bureaucrat. Yes? All of you are having the same dream. And is it possible? Yes, you have one open competition. Everybody can give their best. If you are going to perform your best in the examination, you will be in the list. But here it was not the case. Complete discrimination was there. If you are born in the third estate, you cannot be a part of second estate, nobility. Nahin. First estate, never. So it was the case in the France. So this discrimination was there, and this discrimination on the basis of birth. Along with that, so many negative aspects. One negative aspect I want to share with you, that is third estate has to pay taxes to king everywhere. So you can say that. उसमें कौन सी बड़ी बात है? सब जगह तो होता है, आज भी होता है. Yes, of course it is there. King has a right, because if king want to do the administrative work, he or she required money. Yes, so that money is from third estate. Okay, but here in the very important case, that is third estate has to pay taxes to first estate as well. It was known as tithe, and it was a medieval tax, that is 1/10 of income has to given to church, as well as third estate has to pay to taxes to second estate. Do you really think so peasants are so rich? Forget about that time. What about the present context? Do you really think so that peasants are so rich? They have huge amount of money. Of course not so many, because the peasantry is dependent on nature. Sometimes it produces more, sometimes it doesn't produce anything. Clear? So don't you think so it is a discrimination? Don't you think so it is an injustice? Because only one estate is paying taxes to king, first estate, second estate. It is an injustice with them. And these two groups enjoy all privileges, and the privileges, the most important aspect is exempted from taxation. Completely exemption is there. Means what they have to do? They have to just born. Religious people, they have a duty to perform their duties in church and all. What about the second state? A very unique feature of French nobility was French nobility enjoy the privileges without duties. और बताओ, इससे बेहतर, इससे अच्छे दिन क्या हो सकते हैं आपको? क्या करना है? सिर्फ पैदा होना है, बस, that's it. Nothing. State is going to take care of you. Peasants are going to take care of you. That was the situation. आप आज के ज़माने में आपको गुस्सा नहीं आएगा? Of course, you are going to be angry. Everybody is going to be angry at that time because this is the injustice. Clear? And when you are paying and one particular section is enjoying the lavish lifestyle on the basis of your hard-earned money, it creates a problem. It creates a dissatisfaction. So injustice was there, dissatisfaction was there, discrimination was there on the basis of birth. Clear? So don't you think so that people of third estate know this fact that all these things are there, this injustice was going on? They know that, but still they didn't revolt. Somewhere that anger was there, but they don't have any option. क्लियर? होता है, सब जगह पे होता है, ये दुनिया में कहीं पे भी होता है कि आपके साथ जब नाइंसाफी होती है, आप एक हद तक उसे सहन करते हो. एक बार जब आपकी सहने की ताकत खत्म हो जाती है और कोई आपको एक वजह चाहिए, वो वजह आपको मिल गई कि आपका गुस्सा बाहर निकलेगा. At that time they don't have a reason. They know that there is injustice, discrimination. Because of that, poverty was there, inequality was there. They knew that, but still they can't. So now you considered discrimination, injustice was there, the social factor was problematic here, the society was a problematic thing. I didn't discuss so many things, there are so many other factors also, but I just want to tell you that by seeing this you will get to know one thing: injustice was there, dissatisfaction was there. Clear? So now it shows that problem was there in the French society. Now the next important aspect, what we have mentioned, political aspect. And the polity at that time was absolute monarchy. Polity was absolute monarchy. Monarch was highly influenced by religious ideas. So what kind of problem? I just want to share with you what kind of problem. Few I am going to mention. First, they follow medieval ideals and practices. What kind of medieval ideals and practices? The most important thing, dominance of church over the administration. Religious, dominance of religion over the administration. If it is the case, do you really think so that you are going to think on the progressive line? Do you think so you are going to hurt the sentiment of religious people? You know that sun is a center and earth is revolving around the sun. But if religious dominance is there, you are not going to accept this fact, and this was a reality for a long time. We considered earth is eccentric and sun is revolving around the earth. It was the case. So do you really think so they are going to ready to accept the new changes? No. Clear? So medieval ideals and practices they followed, and the one most important factor of that time, and that is known as king, is known as a god of earth, God on earth, or the representative of God on earth. Tell me one important thing. Do you believe in God? Almost all of you. There are very few people like me who don't believe, but almost all of you believe in that. Yes, it's a good thing. But in most of the cases, we do not have that courage to ask the question to God. Why it is so? Because since our childhood, our upbringing in like that, God is not going to do any injustice with us. A paternal approach is there of God. Yes, am I right? Every religious book is having that. So, when you are not going to ask the question to the authority, don't you think so that authority is going to turn into authoritarian rule, autocratic rule, because unquestionable. If you are not going to ask the question, they are not going to answer, and if they are not going to answer, they are not going to perform their duty. So, this idea was there that became the autocratic rule. The autocratic rule was there because of these ideas. Next important thing, indifferent to the changes. Means it was a time that so many changes goes on all around the world. Scientific development was going on. They don't care. Why? God. They don't care. And that is the reason they were backward. Next important thing I just want to share with you, the policy. There are so many things. I am mentioning the important aspect of it. And that is the role of individual monarch, Louis XIV, 15 and 16. All were ambitious other than 16, because 16 was not that much visionary leader. They were visionary, and at that time the race for colonialism was going on, race for imperialism was going on, and that's why they had a continuous conflict with the Britain everywhere. King, whenever the word king or administration, we always want the welfare state. The welfare approach should be there. But when the war is going on, continuous war is going on, do you really think so that king gets a time to implement this welfare program? Of course not. So these policy and war required huge amount of money. Sometimes you won the war and sometimes you lose. But here it is in the case, their arch rival was Britain, and most of the time Britain defeated them. They have to pay war repression, so it added more financial burden. So these policies were responsible at that time, and when there was a need of introduction of changes, पैसे नहीं है, पैसे कौन दे रहा है? Peasant, किसान दे रहा है पैसे, कब तक देगा, कितने देगा? You have to find out other source of income. Trade is one of the aspect. If you are indifferent to the changes, how can you promote the trade? So when there was a necessity, they were indifferent to them, all the changes. Don't you think so? This is the problem was present, and it was visible. Everybody knew that the problem is in decision making process of the system. So this political problem was present pre 1789, but as absolute monarchy was there, nobody is going to question it. Clear? Now what about socio-politico-economic? There were three important economic problems was there. First, war. As just now I mentioned that France and Britain was having rivalries for centuries over the issue of colonialism. They fought war everywhere in the world, and most of the time France suffered defeat. It added more burden, and the very best example is American War of Independence. The word is American. America was a colony of Britain. Why we mention here? Because France helped America. नहीं, आपको ऐसा नहीं लगता है कि झगड़ा पड़ोस का है और उसके बगल का है, हमें उससे कोई लेना देना नहीं है, फिर भी हम वहाँ पे जा रहे हैं? It is going to, and कब जा रहे हैं? When our condition is worst. It was the same thing, and it is a historical fact without the French support, it was not possible for America to defeat Britain. French supported, and the very best example, Statue of Liberty. Who gifted America? France. Clear? So France was suffering from the problem, but at the same time they engaged in the war with the Britain, and in the American War of Independence, it added more financial burden over them. So continuous war added a burden, economic problem was there. Second problem, and that problem is famine. वो कहते हैं ना, जब आपकी वाट लगनी होती है तो सब जगह से लगती है. It is the same thing. Now the condition is worst. War was going on, no financial structural changes was there, problem was there, and famine, recurrent famine, recurrent, year by year the famine was there. What is the main source of revenue? Agriculture. And do you really think so that famine is not going to affect agriculture production? See, war, famine, situation became worst. Now people are suffering because of this problem. Earlier, right now they have at least food to eat. It create more problem, and this gave realization that there is a injustice was going on, discrimination was going on, and what they want to change the situation. And the last important thing was, as we mentioned, war, famine added more burden over finances. Only source of finance was there, that is agriculture production, land revenue was there, and third important problem was there, no structural changes. No structural changes, because you cannot rely on one source of income. You have to find out the other source of income, because it is a drain out now. But still you are not in a position to think about the other source. Definitely you are going to destroy yourself. And it is the same thing with the France. When they realize the problem, still they don't want to introduce the change structure, whatever the tax structure was there, whatever the system was there, they don't want to introduce the changes. And these three problems were there in finance, socio-politico-economic problem. So don't you think so these all problems were already prevailed pre-1789, pre-French Revolution, it was present. गुस्सा होगा ना यार, एक तो पहले से नाइंसाफी है, साथ ही साथ अभी खाने के लिए अनाज नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, रोटी भी नहीं नसीब हो रही है. It was the case. Situation, economic factor is always an immediate factor. Remember, everywhere in the world, injustice was there, political system was corrupt, everything was there. But economic factor always played an important role. It is always an immediate factor. Because people, human being cannot survive without food. They want food. Once they have their appetite full, they are not going to take care of whatever the injustice is there. But if they are hungry, that hunger leads to the resistance, and that resistance, if it is not solved in an initial period, that is going to lead to revolution. Clear? So these problems prevailed at that time. Okay. The next important thing, as I mentioned, social, political, and economic. Yes, these all problems were there, and that leads to French Revolution of 1789. But some of you might heard, and it is there in the question as well, some philosopher or all. Yes, the word is philosopher or the role of philosopher. What is the role of philosopher? As three philosophers are very famous in the French Revolution, Montesquieu, Rousseau and Voltaire. They all criticize different aspects. Some means the Rousseau is very famous in that. He called the social contract theory. He said that king doesn't have a right. People are sovereign. They can overthrow the king. It's kind of popular will, he mentioned about that. So many aspects they mention about. They criticizes the church as a nuisance. Even some of them talked about the separation of the power. They talked about the freedom, liberty and all. Do you really think so they are responsible or they are important factor that leads to revolution? These are the three important factors. Can we say that role of philosopher or philosopher provoke the masses and that leads to revolution? Do you really think so? Because in history, it is a controversial topic, means a divergent opinion. That's why controversy. That's it. Some said role of philosopher is very important in French Revolution, and some said that their role is not that much important. Means there are basically two views, and the third view is a very rational views. Their role is important, but their role is like a catalyst. You know catalyst? 12वीं साइंस से तो किए होंगे. हाँ. Catalyst. The role of catalyst is basically catalyst. What catalyst is going to do? Is fasten the reaction. Clear? It is not a main ingredient. It fastens the reaction. So, role of philosopher is like a catalyst. Role of ideas and role of I'm not going to discuss the role of philosopher in detail, but I just want to give you one very good example. You know Mahatma Gandhi? All of you. Yes, of course, everybody know. There are very few people, they don't know what is the full form of MK Gandhi and all. That is a different aspect, but we popularly call him as a Bapu. Tell me one thing. Do you really think that Bapu is an important figure in Indian freedom struggle? Yes? Agree? Good. Almost all of you agree with me. Those who are believing in WhatsApp and all, they can't. But those who know the history, they believe that yes, Bapu is an important figure in Indian history. Without Bapu, imagining the freedom struggle is impossible. Near to impossible. Yes? So now my question started here. What if Gandhi was not there in India? Do you really feel so that India is able to get their freedom? यानी गांधी नहीं होते तो क्या हमें आजादी मिलती? Now it creates a confusion. Some of said yes, कोई problem नहीं, गांधी नहीं होते तो क्या problem होता? Some of me said no, Gandhi was important. So हम इसी क्वेश्चन को आगे बढ़ाते हैं कि गांधी नहीं होते तो क्या भारत आजाद नहीं होता? तो बहुत सारे मुल्क, there are so many countries in the world where the Gandhi was not there. Still they got the independence. Sri Lanka is the very best example, a neighboring state. They got the independence in 1948. Clear? The question should be there, what Gandhi makes the difference in freedom struggle? क्योंकि दुनिया में बहुत जगह पे गांधी नहीं थे, तो वहां पे आज़ादी कैसे मिली थी? Most of the places there is a bloodshed. In India it was not the case. Clear? So Gandhi is important, but without Gandhi also कभी ना कभी जिंदगी में तो मिलता ही. Maybe right now we are having a peaceful revolution. We got the peaceful independence as compared to the world. Clear? But without Gandhi, Maybe we got the freedom and all, but with the more bloodshed. Samjhe? Point is there. So the role of Gandhi is like this role of ideas. He acted as a catalyst. He fastened the movement. He charged up the people and thus led to freedom. But the main problem was this. In India also it is the same thing. In the world, in the French Revolution, societal problem was there, political problem was there, economic problem was there. And what role of philosopher was exactly? Philosopher pointed out this thing. They criticized the monarchy, they criticized the church, they awakened the masses through the pamphlets, speeches and all. They said that your condition is worst because of these problems. And who is responsible for it? Present structure, present administrative, socio-political structure is responsible for these problems. And what is the solution? You have to change. So basically, they what we can say highlighted the problem which was prevailed for a long time in a better manner. An economic problem was basically we can consider it as a immediate factors, and that leads to revolution. Clear? Yes, everyone? Now it is clear. So socio-political economic problems were the most important problem along with the role of philosopher that leads to revolution of 1789. I hope whatever we have mentioned, it is clear to you. Yes, everyone? Okay. Now again, we are going to come back to our question. It is a 2016 question. Critically examine. Critically examine, it doesn't mean criticizing. Critically examine means you have to be a balance. You have to consider the positive as well as negative aspect. Whatever the thing is there, you are not going to take one stand. That is the critically examine. Nowadays, you know that people are having only one dimension. They are supporting any particular issue without knowing the other aspects of it. So in bureaucracy, what is expected from you? You have to find out all the possibilities and you have to take the appropriate action. And the thing, whatever I mentioned, it begins here in the examination. Critically examine means without bias, without taking one stand. This is the fact and you have to examine without any prejudice. That is critically examine. Critically examine the statement that the French Revolution was not caused by French philosopher but by the condition of national life and by the mistakes of the government. French Revolution was not caused by philosopher but by the condition of national life and by the mistake of the government. Do you agree with this view? Yes, everyone. Do you agree with this view? Almost all of you agree. But what I said, you do not have to take one stand. You have to take a balanced approach. Clear? So this is the reality. Yes, the condition of national life, that is socio-political economic. This problem we already discussed. The condition of national life was responsible along with the mistakes of the government means as this topic we didn't discuss, and that topic is related to the Louis XVI, the Estate General, summoning of Estate General, what happened and all. Clear? So that is also the mistake that Louis XV, the decision taken by him creates a problem. That is the reality. So if you are going to consider this, okay, these are the important issue and you are going to deny the role of philosopher, then you are not going to write a balanced answer. Clear? So what should be the approach? We already mentioned. So what should be the approach? First, of course, introduction. Remember, This is the optional paper. Optional paper is of essay type. In GS you can write in the points, but in optional always write in the passage. I am going to make the structure, but whenever you are going to write in the passage form. Clear? So introduction. In introduction, what you are going to introduce? Introduction should be simple, as most of you have a problem while writing introduction, because sometimes you heard from the topper and all, introduction should be super, introduction should be good, it creates an impact and all. Yes, of course, but it didn't happen in one day. They practiced lots of time, they did so many mistakes, and finally when they learn from their mistake, their seniors, their mentors mention that what we have to do, what should be our way of writing, and when they improvise it, they write a proper thing. So while writing the answer, first time if you are writing the answer, do not take too much burden of writing a perfect answer. Just write it, a normal words. Maybe you can write a good as well. Don't doubt yourself. Mention it. Introduction. What you are going to mention? In introduction, you are going to talk about the French Revolution. As I mentioned, French Revolution was not an event. It was a process. Yes, and though it happened in 1789, so socio-political economic factors were responsible for the French Revolution, and that leads to that particular event. Clear? It should be a small introduction should be there. Clear? So introduction is very small. Next, now what? Now what we are going to do different? Question is in front of you. Question is having two parts. One part is related to the philosopher, other part is related to this national life and the condition of national life and government. Clear? So what you are going to discuss? In the part 2, you are going to emphasize the problems or the condition in national life. We already discussed. Next important part, what you are going to discuss? The mistakes. That is the Louis XVI, whatever the mistake he had done, the mistakes of government we are going to discuss. Clear? First, introduction. Second, problems in the national life, mistake. Now, because it is but, the word is but by the condition of national life and by the mistakes of the government. As I mentioned, role of philosopher is important, but it is not that much important that without philosopher, revolution is not going to happen. So, here the next part should be a rational approach. It should not be irrational. हमेशा ध्यान रखना, कभी भी आप जवाब लिखते हो तो रैशनल ऐसा होता है क्या कि पूरी तरह से निगेट कर दोगे या पूरी तरह से क्रेडिट दोगे? नो. So we have to adopt a balanced approach. As I mentioned in history, two approaches related to the philosopher. One said that role of philosopher. The best example I just want to tell you, if there were no Rousseau, there were no revolution. यानी रूसो नहीं होता तो रिवॉल्यूशन ही नहीं होती. This is the approach, and they said that no, role of philosopher is important. Without philosopher, revolution is not going to happen. The another is that role of philosopher is not at all important. They said that in statement I just want to mention, the role of philosopher is important in French Revolution is just like putting cart in front of horse. यानी घोड़ा गाड़ी कहते हैं, घोड़ा आगे होता है गाड़ी पीछे होती है. तो उनका मैं कहने का ये मतलब है कि यदि हम फिलोसोफर के रोल को इंपॉर्टेंट रखते हैं तो इसका मतलब है गाड़ी आगे है और घोड़ा पीछे है, गाड़ी घोड़े को खींच रही है. क्लियर? सो दे डिनाइड द फैक्ट, वन accepted a most important role, another denied. So we have to adopt a rational approach, which I mentioned. So now here you have to mention the role of philosopher. The rational approach you have to take. So what kind of rational approach I mentioned? I mentioned role of philosopher, though they don't have a direct involvement. Yes, you have to mention. They never they never promoted the violence and all. They never led the revolution. But what they did, they proper guide the revolution. They emphasize the problem in the society in a better manner. They awaken the masses, and they provided the guidance after 1789 as well. You can see the liberty, equality, fraternity. What it is exactly? It is the same thing. End of slavery. These all are the basic thing. Robespierre, as everybody know about the Robespierre, he was highly influenced by the philosophical ideas. The end of church, the influence of church, rationalization of religion, these are basically contribution of it. So you can write the role of philosopher in this manner. Their role is not stick to 1789 only. Their role is beyond 1789. So this approach we have to adopt. Clear? And the last part is basically, we can write down in number: first part, second part, third part, fourth part, and the fifth you have to write the conclusion. Conclusion is also simple, very simple conclusion. Whatever you have written, you have to just summarize, that is your conclusion. So you can mention that yes, this problem are most important, that is socio-politico-economic problems along with the role of monarch was important for a French Revolution, but role of philosopher is not, or the what we can say, the role of philosopher in French Revolution was not remote too. That is the conclusion. Clear? So such type of conclusion is required. This is the 5-part answer. Yes, everyone? Clear? Any question? Any doubt? Clear? Simple. Okay. So now whatever I want to tell you, I explain everything. I hope you understood it well. If you are having any problem, any query, you can ask. So that's all for this session. Thank you very much for your valuable time.